Hello, everyone, and welcome back to National Park After Dark. My name is Danielle,
And I'm Cassie.
and we are super stoked for today's episode because it is truly unlike any episode we have ever done before in the history of National
Yeah.
Park After Dark.
I feel like it's been a while since we've had a true interview on the podcast, too.
Yeah, and this is like it started out as an interview and turned into just a really long conversation that
hmm
is so insightful. And of course, if you've read the title of this, you will understand that we are having a psychic medium on the podcast today. Her name is Alissa. And our conversation kind of went here, there, and everywhere. And hopefully, we answered a lot of questions that people have had about psychic mediums and spirits and the afterlife and dimensions and all of that. And we'll get into it. But for those of you who have been along on the National Park After Dark ride, you know that, we've been vocal about all of those things over time and our beliefs and how that has popped up throughout episodes and our own personal lives and things like that. So we just thought it was time that we have somebody on to talk about it. And it actually came up. I don't even think I told you this before we get into the interview and who Alissa is, of how this all came about. I have
I
known
don't know.
Alissa for like 3 years now. I connected with her through a Facebook post on a young widows group of somebody being like, oh, I had a good experience with this woman. And whatever, that's how I originally contacted her. And over the years, we've had, conversations, and I did some spiritual mentoring with her. And our last reading was like a few months ago. And it wasn't really as much of a reading as it was just kind of like touching base and me asking some just like guidance questions about certain grief things. And at the very end, she's like, okay, I don't understand why I keep seeing this, but I keep seeing a National Geographic magazine. Like what is that like about? Do you have a subscription where you're just thinking about National Geographic? What do you travel? Like, is it have to do with travel? And it was right when I was framing this um, national park article of ours. It's not National Geographic, but it's a travel national
And it's a
magazine,
magazine.
and it's a magazine. And so
Yeah.
I told her that, and she was like, "Oh, you are like written about in it? I don't understand." And out of all the years that we've talked, I this podcast and what I do has never once come up ever. And she's like, that's so interesting. And she's like, can you tell me more about your podcast? And I told her about what we do. And she goes, oh my gosh. She's like, I was just asking my guides like a couple of days ago to put in my path an opportunity to talk more about what I do and how people can connect with their loved ones and like to amplify my platform.
Wow. No, you definitely didn't tell me that. And then
So
you pop into her life talking about the podcast. You're like, wait, I have a platform
yes, I can
where,
help you.
and a lot of listeners.
Yeah. Isn't that so interesting? Because of course she
That's
has
so
socials
fun.
and stuff, and like we'll link that. And she has a very successful business with this. But yeah, she just like was like, oh, I was wanting some more opportunities to talk to a larger audience of people about this.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Especially because you had never had that conversation before.
Never. I was floored. I'm like, you really don't know what I do? Like,
I
we
don't know.
haven't
I feel
talked
like
about
that's
that?
not that surprising. I feel like we keep it under wraps a lot. I still tell people I'm a vet tech sometimes
Okay, but
when they
she's a
ask me.
psychic.
True.
I felt like she already
You
knew.
must have not lied to her and said
I don't
something
think so.
else. It must have truly not come up because she would have known.
Yeah, yeah. But
You're like,
anyways, okay.
that's not true.
She's like, I actually know. But yeah, so Alyssa's going to be joining us today to talk about all things signs, afterlife, what it all
Yeah.
means.
Her spiritual journey, how she got into this herself, and
Yeah.
answer all the questions. Danielle put a post on our social media, and you guys flocked with
Oh,
questions about mediumship and wanted to know a lot. And she is here with us today to answer all of those questions. So before she jumps on the podcast, we'll introduce her to you guys a little bit. Alissa Smith Moore is an evidential medium and spiritual intuitive. Her spiritual journey began as a child, and she simply knew things before they happened. But her journey wasn't easy. Raised in a strict fear and guilt based religion, she struggled for decades with conflicting beliefs until a life altering chapter reawakened her abilities and changed the course of her life. Alissa has since fully leaned into her psychic skills and ability to see and read energy. She has studied under several spiritual mentors from around the world and provides mediumship, intuitive guidance readings, and more in order to share the messages that are both empowering and healing in nature. Today, she is joining us to answer your questions about her gift, what she has learned on her journey, and how we can all connect to our loved ones who never quite leave us.
Alissa, welcome to National Park After Dark. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yay. So let's just get to know you before we jump into all of the audience questions that we have, because like we were talking about before, we kind of put it out to our audience that we were going to have you on and just wanted to see what the audience was wanting to hear from you or any questions that they wanted answered or have insight on. But let's get to know you first, because you and I connected years ago after Ian passed away. For people who don't know, my late fiance. And to be honest, I think you've asked me this before. I don't really remember how I got your contact info. I think it was like on a Facebook forum of some sort. And I reached out and we've just kind of been in touch over the years. And we'll get into different like mentorship things that you do, because I've also pursued that. But just tell us all a little bit about you, how you first discovered your ability and your gifts and how you got started on this path.
Sure. So I was born, I think, psychically tuned up. Honestly, I believe we all have the ability to do what I do. Just some of us are kind of born, come into the world with it more highly tuned. It's like, anyone can learn to read music. I think anyone can learn to use their sixth sense, which is what I'm doing during readings and in the work that I do. My sister was. So we just at some point realized that not everyone perceived things the way we did, and we kind of kept it between each other. So I found out later that my dad actually was precognitive as a child. He used to tell his mother things and then they would happen. So he had a history of that also, but my sister had super precognitive dreams. She would dream things and then they would happen. I sensed my parents did a lot of volunteer, like hospice type work with people. And sometimes we would go with them. It sounds kind of bizarre, but then I would be highly aware of the people after they passed. Like I could see them still after they had passed. And my sister and I just like, we were raised, my parents were in this very kind of strict Christian church that we were brought up in. And so this was kind of frowned upon. So we learned very quickly just to talk to each other about it, and not like, we didn't tell people that like we could see energy coming off of trees or rocks or things like that, so now I know what that is. But at the time it was a little confusing, and we definitely kept it tamped down because the idea that I could see a spirit might really just be the devil, right? That's how we were taught. Yeah. So it wasn't until later. So what happens is if you're afraid of this ability or this gift, right, that energy of fear actually starts to close it off for you. And by the time I was in my late teens, I was pretty much not having so many experiences. And, by the time you're a teenager too, different things capture your interest, that kind of thing. So I pretty much was shut down. I still would get these knowings. And I still sometimes heard things like, you know what I'm saying? I'd be waked up in the middle of the night with my name being called, would have significant dreams. But throughout the years, then I got married, I had a family, I was focused otherwise. It wasn't until I was in my early 40s and my life got very messy and challenging, and I needed help. And I started to meditate, not really thinking about, my past history of psychic knowledge or ability to see spirit or anything. In my meditations, I was just trying to get some peace and some answers. I was looking for guidance in my life outside of this kind of culty church that I had been raised in and I was still a part of. So I started to meditate. I would ask questions, and I started to get answers. So I started to hear, feel, see, and know what I should do to get out of the kind of mess and unhappiness that I was in. And I would follow the guidance, and then I would go back and meditate again. So I got out of this entire situation that I was in by following the guidance. And it took a period of about a year to a year and a half to find myself, oh my goodness, all my psychic abilities were completely reopened. And then I was starting to see things around other people again. So I got out of it. Like the way my life looked 15 years ago when I started meditating is you wouldn't know I was the same person, right? The people I was friends with, the church that I was in, I'm not putting down churches. It just wasn't a fit for me, the particular sect that had turned kind of cult-like. And so it was getting so much help myself that I realized I wanted to try to use this ability, this intuition, to help others. And so that's when I started offering it to other people.
Amazing. So there wasn't really like one moment that you were like, oh, I know. Like when you're a kid, it wasn't like, oh, all of a sudden one night someone walked into my room and I realized it was my dead great grandmother and she spoke to me. It's like, it was kind of like you just kind of grew up with this sense and knowing it's just like was your normal. And then it went away a little bit and then it just totally got reopened. Okay. Wow. So can you explain a little bit about the difference is between a psychic and a medium? Is there any? Is every psychic a medium or vice versa? Like, can you differentiate that for us? Because we see these terms like thrown around a lot and kind of lumped together, and I think it can get a little confusing.
Yes, I love that question. Great question. So every psychic is not a medium, but every medium is also psychic. Okay. So we have psychic abilities. We all do. A psychic is going to use this antenna. So it's a inner seeing, inner hearing, inner feeling, inner knowing. We call them the clairs. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience when you feel it, claircognizance when you know it. Okay? So a psychic is using that focused out in front of them to the person, right? Or the situation they're trying to read through their psychic abilities. A medium is using those same psychic abilities, that same inner seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing, only you're literally tuning the energy field to another consciousness, not a living person in front of you, but a being that is no longer in physical form, but retains consciousness.
Okay.
So I can do both, right? I could do intuitive type reading on either one of you, talking about your past, your present, and your future. Or I could just refocus where I'm getting the information from instead of getting it from your energy. Boom. I'm going to ask for people that are crossed over, that are connected to you, people or animals, right? That are maintain a consciousness, but are no longer physical. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think something that would help clarify some of this is when I'm envisioning you tuning in to these different consciousness, how do you see what you're seeing and feel what you're seeing? Like, how do you interpret that as someone who has not experienced that? If you could explain what it's like to have these connections come through.
Absolutely. So it's really happening at a telepathic level. So these are non-physical beings. They are consciousness, I believe, and energy, right? An energy that is consciousness. So there isn't anything to see physically. Very rarely somebody will see something with their actual physical eyes. Okay. And that would be that consciousness having to make a manifestation, but they are non-physical. So you're seeing this in your mind's eye. Okay. So I believe, and there are many ancient religions that teach, that we have an energy center called the sixth chakra, or the third eye, actually within. Okay. And that is also the seat of the imagination. So if you close your eyes for a minute and you think about imagining yourself at a beach, a lot of people can see that, right, within their own mind's eye. That is where we see or perceive spirit consciousness. Okay. So it's really an internal process. Now, it's interesting because I will call people that have passed on, I will call them spirit people or spirit. Okay. They retain all the memories that they had, and they'll share them with me in a reading. And they might do that by putting an image or a scene or running a quick little movie or video in my mind's eye.
Okay.
Another way they may do that is direct my attention to look at something in the external world. For example, to focus on the license plate in the car ahead of me. And I'll realize, oh my God, those are my sister's initials. And then I will move within to an awareness within and be like, are you here with me right now? Like, what made me just look at that when there was an incredible rainbow up here and I had to look at the license plate? Something helped me focus my attention there. So those would be two different ways of seeing things. But really, you will hardly ever see my sister who has passed in front of me because she is not physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? It's got to happen
Yeah,
at a telepathic
definitely.
level. It's like they're working through radio waves, right? Or these frequencies to get into my head. It will be an inner hearing. I may literally hear a name of someone inside it's an inner hearing. So picture right now, go within and imagine that you are hearing a cat meow. Can you evoke that
Okay.
hearing inside your own head?
Yes.
Okay. This wouldn't be me evoking it, but this would literally be something that I might hear. And then I know I need to talk about it.
It would just come to you.
Yes. Yes. Spontaneously.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And you were talking about the different clairs. And is there one or multiple that you feel you interpret your information most? Is that like, can you do it all? Or is it just kind of like I'm more clairsentient or clairaudient? And is one like more helpful than another? What are your feelings about that?
Okay. So the clairs is really, the clair is the French word for clear. So we have clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairaudience, clear hearing, clairsentience, clear feeling, claircognizance, clear knowing. And there's a few more, but those are the four that we primarily are working with. We all have the ability to receive information through these clairs. Okay. You can't say that one's more important than another. They all play a part. Usually, most of us will have one or two that are stronger than the rest. So for me, I was very clairvoyant. I was very visual, but you can bring them all online. And there are ways and techniques that you can learn and practices that you can do to bring them all online. At this point, I use them all, and that just makes me a more available instrument to receive psychic information if spirit can give it to me through giving me an image, making me hear a name, giving me a feeling so I know they had a heart attack, right? So I may get an image. I know I have a male who passes in midlife. In my mind's eye, I see that. I hear the name Mark. I feel something in my chest that evokes a heart attack feeling for me. And then I have a knowing he passed in his 50s too soon. So that is going to tell me.
And this all happens like
simultaneously.
Very
Yes.
quickly.
Yes.
Yes. All at one time.
Yes.
Okay.
Now it didn't start out that way. I might see something. So I had to open up and tune up each one of those clairs, right? To be able to receive like that. And now I know what it feels like. There is a learning curve for most people. Even if you have one or two that are more heightened for you, you would bring them all online, and then you can learn how to receive from all of them. And usually a story begins to emerge, right? If I'm starting to perceive this. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned that you've had to practice this and work on it. What does that look like? How do you make yourself more open to this and train yourself to be able to receive
I
these?
love this. I actually teach people how to do this. I went to teachers. I knew that I was starting to hear things, see things, feel things, and know things. I was keeping journals on it, right? This was after I was really trying to get more in touch and get guidance in my life. But I
Mhm.
enrolled in mentorships and classes. And once you get into this world, you find out there's people teaching, right? Because there is technique and there are practices that you can do under a teacher or in a class. And I did that for years, and I still do. I still go to to people that are better than I am in this work, or beyond what I yet know. I love to give people like all kinds of fun ways to play games yourself. And when I teach, I'm very playful with it, right?
Mhm.
But there are, I mean, do you want an example of like a game to play?
Sure.
To heighten your okay. So there's literally like you two guys could do this, or you could do this with anyone. I can do it with my sister, right? So I will think about something several times during. We'll set it up in the morning. I'm gonna be like, okay. So my sister is Cassie. I'll be like, okay, Cass, I'm gonna think about something specific 3 or 4 times today, and we're not gonna set any time to do it, but you set your intention to try to receive from me what I'm thinking about 3 or 4 times today, and then we're gonna talk at the end of the day, right?
Mhm.
That would be so. Then I might focus on a specific memory from our childhood, or I might sit and focus on a beautiful image of a flower or a bird, right? And just picture it, and then I will literally like see it going to her through time and space, right? So that's you can be the receiver and the giver. So you can play like that. Another thing I try to do is I'll keep my phone down so I can't see the screen. And then when it rings or I get a text message, before I flip it over, I just try to tune myself into, can I see or hear? Who is this that's calling me? And play around like
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
Another thing I did is I would play with a deck of cards, just regular playing cards, flipped upside down.
Mhm.
And I would shuffle them over here where I couldn't see or close my eyes. And I would pick one card with my eyes closed and hold it between my hands. And then I would try to see what I could perceive. Which card was it in the deck? Sometimes all I could know it was black and I couldn't see. Like I started out just trying to see what the colors were, then the numbers, then the shapes. Like could I tell what it was? So those are all ways to play around, and
Okay.
then you get in learning, and there's more and more and more ways, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because there's such small little acts that you can kind of practice and build up on. I have to ask too, with everything that we're speaking about, is this something that you are in tune to? Are you getting signs and images all the time? Is it something that you can turn off if you're like, I'm not in a space to receive these right now? Or is it something that now that you've opened yourself to it, that you experience it all the time?
Yeah, great question. So the problem with the people who are naturally tuned in, born with their psychic senses heightened, is they don't have control usually, which my sister was very troubling for her because she always had dreams about terrible things that then would happen. And she didn't like that, right? She, for some reason, wasn't tuned into the good
Mhm.
things, just the bad things. So, two things there is I believe for myself and I teach strong boundaries. So, I do not stay open except to my own loved ones in spirit and my own
Mhm.
guidance team, which I believe we all have certain spiritual beings around us that are here to help us in our lifetime, our guidance team. And again, this was something that I learned was how to establish that boundary, because I used to get spirits once I opened up to this waking me up at night to tell me about my reading the next day. And I had to like learn like, no, dude, sorry. You don't have to sleep anymore, but I do. So I am closed for business except when I'm actually providing a reading for someone else. And then I do open up. So I didn't want to be seeing spirit at my daughter's soccer game or when I was at the mall. It's overwhelming. Psychic and mediums can be very affected by having anxiety. And that would be when you haven't learned how to establish a boundary for yourself. And I have found that spirit will honor a boundary if I honor it too. So if I'm going to a funeral,
Okay.
it's really not a good time to be opening up and trying to tune in, right? I honor that boundary, and I can go and honor someone at their funeral, but not be talking to all the spirits that are in the funeral parlor. I've done it both ways. It's a real mistake. But when I honor my boundaries, spirit will honor those boundaries too. Howsoever,
Okay.
I have chosen to stay open to my own loved ones so that I can hear my sister if she just wants to say hello to me during the middle of the day or whatever. So yes, I think the answer to your
Okay.
question is yes, there can be boundaries. And as far as I'm concerned, there should be.
That's so good to know, because I was just envisioning, you mentioned people having anxiety who have these abilities, and I'm imagining you're getting so many signs and feelings and different. I just imagine that being, I'm not in a spot to let alone speak to people sometimes, never mind just having all of this come to me. So it's good to know that there are boundaries
because that's
this.
overwhelming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That would be overwhelming, and it is for people who don't establish a boundary. Yeah.
So, a question about that. How do you separate your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions from those that you are receiving? Is it a very clear delineation? Like, can you feel that separation? Or is it like sometimes confusing, or does it get muddled ever?
It's the ultimate question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a discipline, and I had to learn it. So at the beginning of a reading, I literally I set an intention. All my stuff is over here. And I literally, it's like moving into, so I have a picture in my mind's eye that I'm moving into a void, if you will. And then I start to receive from a blank slate. Now, here's how this works. In a mediumship reading, and that would be a reading where we're purposely trying to connect with people that are passed over. So those consciousnesses of the spirit people. This is not a psychic reading. This would be a mediumship reading. What's happening is, as a medium, you give permission for spirit to access your own memories and the files in your own brain, in your own consciousness, right? So spirit is literally going through my memories, and they may pull up a memory of me being with my father when he passed. And here's what you can only learn from practice. That memory comes in. Is this just my mind remembering that my dad passed in the middle of this reading? No. If I'm in a reading on purpose, trying to bring information through, this means I need to mention to the person, you were with your dad when he passed. Would you understand that? And then I might see an image in my mind eye. He tells me you were actually holding his hands. Would you understand that? Right? And that there was no one else in the room. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then more details will start to come in. So it's a really fine line to figure out what's yours and what's really coming to you. And here's how you can stay in integrity with that. I always bring forward evidential details that are so specific: names, dates, cause of death, the street you lived on, like things, a birthmark, things like this, so that I know I'm on track, right? So things that the person, the client in front of me can validate. So that's how, as mediums, have to discipline themselves to stay on track, bring forth evidential information that can be validated. And then that makes it easier throughout the reading, as long as I'm still getting, because Danielle, I've read for you. I don't remember what kind of details I gave you for you to know that it was your fiance coming through. I don't remember readings, but there probably would have been between 5 and 10 highly specific pieces of information that you said yes to, right? And then we might move into a part of the reading that can't be validated so much, but it might be his messages to you, what he's doing right now.
Right. But it's, yeah, but it's like, well, we already established this foundation of all these details that are correct. So now that the messages are coming through, you can take that with more validity than just you starting out with this message that feels like it's being pulled out of thin air. But once you get that strong foundation of like, this is actually an established connection, I feel more confident in what I'm being told. right now. And it's just so interesting because, like I haven't talked a lot about this on the podcast, but Cassie knows that, of course, I've had readings with you, but I've also done mentorship classes with you and trying to expand my abilities. And I just remember, like, we've had several one-on-one sessions and just kind of going through this mentorship. And then you're like, okay, and now I'm going to give you the numbers of 3 random people and you need to call them and do readings for them. And I was shitting my pants. I'm like, what? uh, okay. And I just very specifically remember calling this one woman. I don't even remember I don't remember her name, but I remember just getting all of this information. And I just kind of like, you had told me kind of how to start constructing a reading and like the levels of how, okay, establish this and the details and then go here, here, and here. And I'm just getting all these flashes of images. I don't know what I'm saying, what it means. And the woman was so lovely because obviously they are people who are also in your program. They're not just random people who you need to, say this information to. And she was so encouraging. She's like, okay, so this feels like psychic information. You're on track. Like a lot of this tracks, but I want you to level up and let's like get into medium stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I could do that. And I, like you said, like you just switch that antenna and shift that energy really slightly, but it makes a huge difference. And then I started getting those images of like pulling from my experience bank, I guess, and my references. And it's like, felt like all of a sudden I was thinking of my cousin Molly, who I haven't thought of, in weeks. And all of a sudden here she is on my brain. I'm like, do you have a cousin who is more of like a best friend to you that doesn't feel like family? And she's like, yes, keep going. And it's like, it's
Yes.
that it's like, okay, yes, that's my experience, but why would it be happening to me in this moment? It must be for a reason. And that's the path of like trying to figure out, what does this mean? And maybe it doesn't mean anything to me, but it means something to them.
Do you mind if I add on to that?
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's all about your intention. Are you intending to focus on the person in front of you and find out details about their current life and their past life and what's going on in the future? Or are you intending? So you shifted an intention slightly, right? What came to you naturally when you were speaking to this woman was some psychic information. And then she says, let's go into mediumship. And you had a little intentional refocus, like just over here. And then you started to get information that was going to be mediumship for her, right? Which is going to be about someone who's passed on. Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's all about what is your intention? Because when we control our own energy, where focus goes, energy flows. So what am I going to focus on? Right? And in a reading, you might I might move back and forth between some psychic information and some mediumship. Okay. And that's okay. But you can focus, you can learn how to focus on different frequencies, the frequency of the spirit world, the frequency of the current world, the frequency of the health of the person in front of you, the frequency of the finances of the person in front of you, right? So you learn intentionality on where you place your focus, and then the energy follows and flows, whether that's a spirit consciousness of a being who's passed over, or whether that's just information that's actually in your energy field as a living person.
It sounds so easy. Like, yeah, just do it.
But you come, the only way, it takes practice. It takes practice. And I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced blindfolded, and I practiced over the phone, and I practiced getting no feedback, and then where you can't read body language or anything like that. And now I do it multiple times a day. And so now to me, it's like second nature. Just switch my focus, right?
Yeah. Well, just kind of shifting a little bit into a topic that people are really interested in, and that is receiving signs from loved ones. I mean, not everyone feels like they have this ability to do like, more intense connections or want to. but would like to feel some sort of connection with people or animals that they've lost. And we've talked a lot about signs and synchronicities, and we're always kind of like, is that a coincidence? Is it not? What, like, how do we even start asking for signs? Is this a subconscious pattern recognition, or is it really something from the universe? What are your thoughts on signs? How can people ask for them? How do you differentiate between just seeing a cardinal because cardinals exist, or if it's your deceased aunt that's saying hello?
Love this question. Okay. So you just asked a lot of things in one question. Synchronicities. Carl Jung actually, the psychologist Carl Jung actually coined that word for us. It kind of gave it a definition, which is, I wish I had the exact wording. I'm going to paraphrase, but basically it's when things are lining up in such a way that it appears to be more than coincidence, right? So that might be that you actually, your father is passed over, and you actually 3 times in one day received his initials or his name somehow, right? So his name wouldn't be, I wouldn't say it was John, right? But say his name is, I don't know, McGregor or something, right? And that shows up either on a license plate, in a song, or on the news for you 3 times in one day. That would be called a synchronicity. Does that make sense?
Okay.
That's when something is happening more than is likely to be a simple coincidence. Seeing it one time, or, okay, here, I'll give you an example. My dad actually passed away 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And he was a avid sportsman. He lived along the Delaware River most of his life. We had a ton of bald eagles. He loved spotting and seeing and talking about the bald eagles. After he passed, in my head, I asked him to send me bald eagles. Now, here's the thing. I live in Florida. There aren't really bald eagles around here. So I said to him, I'll take them in any form you can send it to me. In my mind, this could be someone sending me a message with an emoji with a bald eagle on it, right? Or being presented with a t-shirt when I'm out shopping with a bald eagle. I don't care. I'll take it in any way you can send it to me. Or maybe I'll see one outside. It's just not really likely. And I kind of like this idea when it's not so likely, right? I didn't say it to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't have screwed with the algorithm on my phone or whatever else either, right? Like I didn't say it. It was an internal thing. The next day, I'm scrolling through Facebook and somebody has a post with photographs of 2 different bald eagles. And I'm just like, oh, thanks, Dad. I go down 3 more scrolls and there's a second post from some other person who doesn't even know the first person with a photograph of a bald eagle. So now here's 3. That's sort of a magic number for me. Then the next thing that happens is my husband brings in the mail and there's a magazine from our town that's in the mail. I open it up. It's a freaking picture of a bald eagle. So, right? In my belief, 2 of them came on social media, but 2 of them within 5 minutes. You know what I'm trying to say? I wasn't on a ball. I wasn't doing anything to make that hit my algorithm that way. And then to come in the mail to me also, right? So all on the same day. That was enough. To me, that is how spirit could send a sign. Now, not everyone's going to believe that, but that is a medium. I will tell you very often in a reading, as the medium, I may tell you, say that I'm the medium for someone who's asked their dad for a bald eagle. I'll literally get that information in the reading. Hey, your dad says he wants to use bald eagles. And then they'll be like, holy crap, that was already my sign for my dad. But they never told me that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So that's one way of getting signs. So you said, is it always a sign, or sometimes is it just like, what is it? Honestly, I think it's both. Mm-hmm. When we're wanting to hear from our loved ones, we are naturally more open to it, right? But also our brain also has what's called the reticular activating system, RAS. I don't know if anyone's heard about it. It's actually a function of our brain. And it follows that principle of where focus goes, energy flows. When we think about something, our brain goes out looking for it too, right? So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
here's the cool thing. My brain didn't make that thing come in the mail to me with the picture of the ball. You know what I'm trying to say? That just came spontaneously that day as the third thing in. So if I even wanted to discount the postings on Facebook, I still got it another way. Does that right? Okay. So I would have to say that yes, sometimes it is just a coincidence, and not every cardinal you see is your mother sending a cardinal to you, right? But the cardinal that lands on your window and stares at you might be influenced by the spirit of your mother to say hello. So 2 things. There's signs just from the universe or from your guides, right? And then there's signs from loved ones. And whether or not you're a medium, your loved ones still connect. They can actually perceive your thought waves. Okay, they are pure energy, and your thoughts move back and forward in your own energy field as thought waves. So very often in a reading, I'll get a piece of information and the person will say to me, I haven't told anyone that. I'm only thinking about it. A trip, say, maybe they're going to make a trip, to Europe. And they're going to go to Berlin, Germany. And I'm saying, your mom's telling me that you have a trip coming up and she's so excited for you to go to Germany and visit Berlin. And they'll say, oh, but I haven't told anyone that. Nobody knows it. It's only in my mind. I'm like, well, your mom knows it because she just told me, right? So they perceive our thought waves. So you can actually communicate to your own loved ones by thinking about them and sending thoughts out to them. They perceive those thoughts. You don't even have to hear anything back or know anything back. They're already perceiving it. If you want to receive signs from them, let them know, like I did with my dad. I'd like to see at least 3 eagles in the next 48 hours. How are you going to do that? And I'm open to any way you want to send it to me. Even the name Eagle.
Okay.
If someone texted me the next day and said, hey, I was an Eagle Scout and I'm so proud of it, I would have been all over that. Right? As a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes into a question that came up a lot was okay, so there's actually kind of a couple questions that you hit on in your answer. One was, are my deceased loved ones around me all the time? Can they hear me all the time? Are they just popping in and out on big milestones? Or are they just kind of like always watching? Or is it like they just show up in big significant events? And are they kind of just like on call for me whenever I need them? So that's kind of the first part. So let's start there.
Okay. So first of all, I have found out that we are very limited in our human existence. And once we're no longer within a physical human body, a lot of the limitations are gone and spirit can actually be multi-focused. Okay. So yes, they can be always available for us. And I find that for the most part, that's the case. And they can also be doing other things at the same time. And that's hard for us to understand because we're stuck in a very human body. But if you think about it in your own, think about your own consciousness, you can hold many things within your consciousness. And that's what spirit is now, is consciousness unhindered by having to be within a physical form. And also another thing I have to say is it appears that linear time actually doesn't exist in the state of consciousness of being non-physical. We experience past, present, and future down here on the earth plane in our physical bodies. Just go smoke a joint and notice how the construct of time changes, right? Like, whoa, literally your consciousness changes and time is different. Okay. Yeah. So I think if we think about it, we could grasp that not everything is experiencing a march of linear time. Spirit experiences time as it just is. They can access the past, the present, the future all at once. Then that blows our minds. I can't say anything more than that because my human mind can't really comprehend it. So I think I just got myself lost. But I think what I wanted to answer to you, Danielle, is they can hold multiple focuses. They could be passed for 40
Okay.
years and still come through in a reading, but it's not like they've been hanging around you for 40 years. They definitely describe all kinds of amazing things that are going on in the great beyond that they're involved with. Okay. And yet they can still focus through time and space 40 years later if it's important to come into a reading with you and give an apology for something, or show them they know you're celebrating something, or show them show the medium that they know you're going through a very hard time and need support. All it takes is a shift of your focus. I want to connect with my sister, and she's there. You may or may not feel it, but I will tell
Okay.
you it's a mental process. It goes like that. They feel the call, the pull. It's like literally a telephone ringing for them. Okay. And they may not come around you in a way that you are feeling sometimes, but they are. It's because it comes through like literally a mental thought wave. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Kind of.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other part of that was you have mentioned a couple times a difference between deceased loved ones and guides. Can you talk to us about that? And like, we hear a lot like your team of light or your team or, you know, your support system or your soul family. Like, what are those terms? What do they mean? Do we all have a team? And what does that look like?
Okay. I'm going to start with what we call the higher self, okay. So when I'm reading somebody, I can actually a lot of times perceive what we call the higher self up above, sometimes way up above and sometimes hovering fairly close. It appears to me like as an energy or a being of light. I usually will see it over the head, but then there's a connecting energy within the heart. Within what we call the heart chakra, which is in the center of the chest, slightly to the right of the physical heart. Okay. I also would call this your soul. It's the aspect of us that leaves when we die. It's what animates the physical body, right? And then becomes the consciousness that is the spirit person when it's no longer housed in a physical body. It's way too big to fit in our physical body. A little bitty fractile is in the heart. I can a lot of times see that, right in here. And then the rest is like an energy coming up out of the body. And it's partly what makes up your own energy field, your own auric field. Okay. And honestly, Cassie, when we were talking to you about your clairsentience, this is part of your soul energy around your physical body that can feel these things. And then it's like giving information. And that's why you get these feelings in your body or in your mind, or information in your mind. So the higher self that's who we actually are as a spiritual being right now, inhabiting a physical body, as much of it as can fit in. So have either one of you ever felt something like that, just like you felt so much love that you almost felt like literally your heart was going to break or something, but it was a good feeling? It wasn't sadness. It was like so much. You just overfilled with it. Okay. That is how this part of you exists all the time, is in that kind of a space of love, right? That's what is a little bit in your heart and then all around the outside of your body. I actually believe that our higher self is our most intimate guide in a lifetime. And we all have it because we're all a soul, start out as a spiritual being coming in to have a physical lifetime. Okay. So that's one guide. And that maybe in religions, that's what's also called the guardian angel, right? Because we all have it. You'll find this in some different religions where they're going to talk about aspects of like a very personal higher being that's connected to you always through your lifetime. That would be your higher self. Okay. Your higher self is the consciousness that exists in a state of pure love, that also is the consciousness that planned this lifetime. So your higher self knows everything, right? So for me, I want to always try to be inviting my higher self to be closer to me and to be giving me guidance about my life. So that's one guide. I believe we all have this. That is what we are essentially as spiritual beings. That is what the fractile leaves from the heart space, goes back up through the crown chakra, rejoins, and then moves on into the spiritual plane as a non-physical soul, spiritual beings of consciousness. Okay. I also a lot of times perceive other beings of light around people that I would say is their guidance team. This can consist of angelic beings, which are beings of a certain frequency, of a certain energetic frequency, that have never incarnated into physical bodies. They're pure spiritual beings. Sometimes there are beings that were once on Earth, had physical bodies and went through an Earth lifetime and have passed and are now have assignments, if you will, or have offered to be helpful to people that are maybe down here on Earth. We call that spirit guides. Also, a lot of times a past loved one or an ancestor of yours may come for a certain time during your life to be a spirit guide, if you will, for you. So not everyone who you know and love who passed becomes your spirit guide. And someone who may be an ancestor 3 generations back may be a spirit guide that you actually never knew. But your grandma or your father or you know what I'm saying, can come for different periods of time to kind of guide you through different things. So not everyone you know that you love that's passed becomes a spirit guide. Some do, some for just periods of time. I can see these angelic beings. I can see these spirit guides. We also have spirit guides that we never knew, but are here to help us, right? Had some other lives. And then we've always, the constant for me is the higher self. So there are guided meditations. There are ways to get in touch with some of your own guides for yourself. And then you can also go to a reading where someone like me will tell you about your guides. I usually don't do that for people. I would rather lead them into an experience or teach them techniques to learn about their own guides, because that's how I want to know it for myself, not because somebody told me, right? But the one thing anyone could start doing is ask their higher self, come close to me. How will I feel you? How will I know you? Or just start asking questions where you want guidance in your life. Is it the best thing to take this job? Is that for my best and highest good? Please, may I get guidance around that? And then you may or may not get an answer right away. Doesn't matter. See what happens over the next few days or weeks. A lot of times I ask my guidance questions before I go to sleep at night. And I either wake up in the morning with the answer or I don't, in which case I just keep asking until I get the answer. Sometimes it comes in a dream. Sometimes I wake up knowing, and sometimes it takes days or weeks before I'm kind of aligned to hear or receive in some way whatever the guidance would be. But I always say, start with a higher self. That's how I teach it, because we all have a higher self. It is our most intimate aspect of ourselves. That's also always connected to source energy and love energy. And it resides within and without.
Okay. It's kind of trippy to think about. It's like, I will ask myself about that.
I know.
That is part of me, but also not. And they know me, and it is me. But yeah, I understand.
So here's a way to access that. It does feel trippy. I had a mentor who was great with me, and she was really helping me come along and open up my own abilities, and I would run guidance by her. And for about the first 6 months, she would give me guidance. And then that all stopped, and I would come with a question, and she would say, if you knew the answer, what would it be? And I was like, that is so unhelpful. That's what you're here for. But she was doing me the best favor ever, which was to access the higher aspect of me does know the answer. Mm-hmm. I may not be able to hear it right now or feel it right now, but I can start by asking this higher aspect of me that remembers who it is and who I am to give me these answers. So if you knew the answer, what would it be?
Okay.
Sometimes I would find out I do know the answer. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I feel like we can all relate to that.
For sure.
A couple people brought up, but I've also kind of struggled with a little bit, is I used to be super into the paranormal growing up, like ghosts, paranormal, like light switching on and off, like EVPs and like spooky stuff. And then I think I've just really shifted in what I feel is paranormal. And I'm having like kind of a hard time accepting like hauntings anymore like I used to, because I just
Yeah.
feel like I have a different belief system. And that's like a very strange like place to be, because I don't know. Like is that related? Like can something be haunted if you think that like all souls are pure and we all move on, and like, or does that exist? Like I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah.
So it's a great question. We can cover that if you want to. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be something that, cuz a lot of people love hearing like, oh, this place is haunted, this hotel's haunted, and this, yeah.
So if your focus is on kind of curiosity and hauntings, where focus goes, energy flows, right? You are maybe going to have those kinds
Mhm.
of experiences. And I mean, I don't play with a Ouija board because it seems that I do believe that there are non physical entities that are not so desirable or that are not operating from a space, a frequency that I really want to be inhabiting or connected to.
Okay.
I also think that so called hauntings could be an energy pattern stuck in time, replaying itself. If something very traumatic happened,
Mhm.
right? Literally, there may not be any kind of spirit. The spirit may have gone on. Say there was a murder. You know what I'm saying? Spirit may
Mhm.
have moved on, but something in the energy field keeps replaying, and that's people who are sensitive might pick up on that.
Gotcha.
Do I really know all these answers? No, I don't really know that. But what I know is that I used to have hauntings until I learned how to tune my energy field and what I wanted to tune it to, which would be very high frequency beings that have moved on in their soul evolution. And so now that's what I connect to. And if somebody comes to me
Gotcha.
out of curiosity, just simple, like I'm not, no, my work is to be hopeful, helpful, and healing and empowering, right? Not to just play around with a Ouija board and get someone to spell George and figure out who, I'm just not. So,
Right. You're like, I'm
and
past
I'm
that.
also not,
Okay.
yeah, well, I don't even mean it, and I'm not putting it down. It's just not where I really want to spend my time. And so,
No,
because
totally.
like attracts
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be moving into the frequency of spirits that are moving closer and closer to what I believe is source energy, love energy, and continuing an evolution, right? An evolutionary experience. So I do think there's
Okay.
hauntings.
Wow.
And if that's what you're interested in,
Okay.
you'll get more of them. And you'll be attracted to places where there are hauntings, where maybe there was, weird deaths or murders or things like that. In my readings, I get plenty of murders, but it's not really what I focus on, right? In a reading. And there are some people that is like, and honestly, I'll listen to some true crime stuff. I do have an interest in that, but I'm not really wanting to like have that part of my daily life, or so instead I'm
Yeah.
focusing more on a different kind of energy. So yeah.
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 I have no interest in being haunted, but I will say I'm very sensitive
Yeah.
to places that are haunted. And I definitely, when I go places that have had bad things happen or just have a lot of energy, I feel it as soon as I enter wherever I am.
I call Cassie my canary
Well,
because
let me explain what that is. That is
yeah.
your psychic sense of clairsentience, clear feeling. That would be what's more
Okay.
highly tuned for you in your own antenna here, your own psychic antenna. Okay. So you tend to feel things,
Interesting.
and then you get maybe a knowing
Yeah.
from that feeling. So your claircognizance is
Yeah.
informed because of the feeling. And you probably couldn't exactly describe even but it's off, or it's, what I'm trying to say? Maybe it was a bad situation that happened there.
Yeah. I can feel almost heavy when I go in places, and I can feel like I don't know. I remember there was one time we were at a hotel that was haunted and we were standing somewhere and I was like, did something really bad happen here? And we're like, no. And we looked everything up. And I just like couldn't shake it. And I looked it up and I found out that someone a couple weeks earlier had fallen down the stairs and had died where we were standing. And that was something where when I was standing there, I was just like, I know something bad happened right here and I just don't know what it is.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So probably what you were feeling was actually not the spirit of the person, but the fear that they experienced, right? The fear, the trauma, and or the fear and trauma of the people that came and found this person dead at the bottom of the staircase. Okay?
Interesting.
So that we all are emanating energy all the time. That's how a psychic actually reads you, is what's coming off of your body, right? And there's information about your past, your present, and your future there. So, and we call this an energy imprint. And certain very traumatic things, or where there was a very electrifying energy for a space, it can get stuck per se, or replay on a loop.
Mm-hmm.
In areas. And then if in this hotel, everyone kept talking about it, right? For a period of time. This only happened 2 weeks ago, you said, right? From the time you felt it?
Yeah, I believe it was a couple of weeks before we had gotten there.
Yeah, so it's still very fresh. It's fresh on everyone's mind. Okay, and so this kind of energy is replaying in this area. And then someone who's sensitive, who has a strong sense of clairsentience, would pick that up. And the reason you say it's bad is it was probably filled with fear, right? That's like the worst thing. You're afraid for the person, but you're afraid that something like that could happen to me. That just feels so random, so scary. Why? You know what I'm saying? So that energy in that building and that place especially would be filled with, and then all the talk that's going on, keeping it alive too, right? And it was still a very recent occurrence.
That's so interesting.
But the reason she says you're the canary is you have that would be your psychic power, your psychic gift would be your clairsentience. So listen to it. It's your gut.
No one's ever said that to me before. But yeah, that totally makes sense because when we travel together a lot, I feel like I feel different energies of spaces that I'm in quite often.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to play with this, you were asking earlier, how do I play how do I develop? When you feel it, you can then go into your head and just verbalize a question within your own head. What happened here? You might hear something, a death. You might get an image. You might literally see a fall down down the steps. You know what I'm saying? Or you might hear a name. And then you could say who, and then who would be. You don't have to do that. But if you want more than just a random not good feeling or a random great feeling, right? You could also walk into a space where there was a child who had just been born. Let's say the baby, came unexpectedly at home, and this baby had been so wanted for so many years. And then finally, right? And you might walk into that space and feel joy and excitement and new beginnings. Like that's another thing that you could feel. It doesn't always have to be the unfortunate, but you're being informed through your clairsentience. And if you want more information, like, oh, what happened in this space? I'm feeling so light and beautiful and joyful. You might get an image of a newborn baby, or you might see a mom, you know what I'm trying to say? A woman who's just like so joyful that she's holding her baby in her arms. So you could get an image, you could get a knowing, you could get a hearing. Yep.
Okay. Next time that happens to me, I'm going to remember this conversation and I'm going to try and dive into it a little bit better than I have.
Yeah, just ask a follow-up question, I guess, instead of just being like, this feels awful and I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it hasn't always been awful. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, we went to a really scary, Danielle loves to bring me to haunted hotels, even though I have no interest. I actually have this whole practice of what I do when we go to haunted hotels where I say, hello, thank you for allowing me to be here. I respect your place here. Please do not bother me because I just don't want it. But we went to a really scary hotel in California. And one of the first things that happened to me when we were there is I heard I heard a very clear voice in my head when I was going to the bathroom, and it wasn't scary.
My God.
I
In
was
San
just like,
Diego.
yes. And it was supposed to be this really scary hotel. And I didn't hear, like, I didn't feel scared. I just like heard a voice in my head when I was going to the bathroom. And I was just like, hello?
What did it say?
It asked me, so I have a series of, I've had a lot of health issues in my life, and it asked me what was wrong with me health wise. And I just heard it in my head when I was going to the bathroom, and I was like, what? I was like, I
It's like,
had a
what?
kidney
Excuse
and
me,
I just,
what's wrong with you?
yeah. And I, in my head, I was like, I had a kidney transplant. And then it like, and that was, it was like, oh, okay. And then it was like, I don't, there was something of like, you wouldn't have survived that like in my time kind of like thought process that went through my head.
Okay. So that was your clairaudience. That, what happened was clairaudience. You heard it in your head, which is what I was trying to explain to you happens. You see it inside, you hear it inside, you heard it in your head, and you knew it wasn't yours, right?
Yeah.
And it
definitely
now,
wasn't me.
From the spirit side, what was happening is that spirit was perceiving the energy around you, which when someone's having health problems, that shows up in the energy field around them. So they perceived that and then verbalized a question, which you got in your head. You couldn't get it outside objectively. It was subjective because there is no voice. There is no lungs or anything. It's literally a mental, it was a question formed in the mind, the consciousness, right, of the spirit that was hanging out there. If they said to me, what's wrong with your health? I probably would have said back to them in my own mind, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Since you can see that. But that was your clairaudience, unexpectedly.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Mm-hmm. I've never like thought about it too hard. I'm just like, this kind of happened. And I don't really have a way to explain it or how.
Did you perceive if it was a male or female energy talking to you?
It felt male.
That's
to me.
That's what I was picking up too. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and it wasn't scary. It just kind of, it was almost comical when it happened. It's like, what do you mean? I'm trying to go to the bathroom. Why are you in here? Why am I getting this conversation?
Okay, so I'm so glad you just said that. I meant to say this earlier when Danielle was asking if spirit can see us always, right? So if these are decent spirits, okay, are not keeping toms and they're not watching you have sex or take a shower or go to the bathroom, okay? And they honestly, they don't even have eyes. They have an energetic perception. So when we say they see or they hear, it's a perception, really. We use our language the best way we can. They don't have eyes. There's nothing, it's eyes that see, right? So they are, I mean, probably that entity may not even perceive that he was in the bathroom with you, right? Okay, so you're just available and you're open, and maybe he wasn't even trying to talk to you. He may have just formed a thought. This consciousness may have just formed a thought in his own, because he's seeing the energy come off of you that says something's wrong in the health, or there's been some trauma in the health of this person. Forms the question, you receive it. There's the telepathy. You receive it through clairaudience into your own mind. Right? And it happens to be accurate. You were someone who is struggling with, or has struggled with various health situations.
Yeah. It's just so funny that you say that. And it's nice hearing that they don't have eyes. Like, okay, good.
Or so that they're not maybe aware of like, this is a private thing. It's just like,
it's just like your energy's here. Yeah.
And I'm here.
Like
so we're all here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Honestly, as I understand it, there really is no time or space. We're all inhabiting. So every once in a while, this is why I say they're always available to us. If we think of them, all it takes is a thought for their consciousness to be back with us. They don't go anywhere, right? There is this weave of consciousness of which we are all part of. And usually when you're in a physical body, you're focused on the physical, right? The people that you can see physically in front of you, the person you're talking to on the phone. So, but just think about how we talk on the phone. How is that happening? Through what waves? What, right? The sound wave, how is that being conducted? mind to mind telepathy, using your psychic senses of seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. That's what they're doing. So that spirit was just inhabiting kind of the same space, if you will, that you were in for a moment. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Sort of. It's hard to talk about because we're so limited, you know what I'm saying, in how we think and understand. And we're so focused on everything material and physical, as we should be, because we're in a physical dimension right now. But there are many other dimensions that are non-physical, I believe.
I believe that as well.
And yet they aren't in a separate space. It's all about where you put your focus.
Okay. So they're all here. Everything is happening. What is that movie? It's like Everything Everywhere All at Once or whatever. Cassie probably hasn't seen that movie. But yeah, that's just kind of what I envision. Just everything is happening now. A little bit of a pivot, but a lot of people had questions about animals and whether or not animals who pass on, or even animals that are living, if they are in this like soul bond, soul family, if they can act like deceased people as far as communicating with you or sending signs or things like that. What is your experience with communicating with animals?
Yeah. Well, we started out here with Cassie's cat showing up, right?
Right. Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So yes, animals can communicate from the great beyond after they've crossed the rainbow bridge. They, interestingly enough, as a medium, they communicate just like people do. They literally will give me images in my mind's eye. They might give me their name. I have had everything from horses to like a cockatiel. That was an unbelievable reading, right? One time I had, this one blew my mind. A Siamese fighter fish. Okay, come through. I was doing a reading for a young woman. I don't remember. Her dad had come through, whatever else. And then all of a sudden I got this image in my mind's eye of this Siamese fighter fish. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know if it was a sign. I didn't know what it was. I said to her, I'm seeing a Siamese fighter fish. Well, she starts to cry and she goes, oh my God. He died at the same time that, I was going through all the stuff we've been talking about with my dad. The fish then put in my mind's eye what the room looked like from his perspective of the fishbowl, the things that like he could see around this circle of the fishbowl. I described it to her and she was like, that's my living room. Those are the books on the bookshelf across to the left. Like all the stuff matched up. And the fish was flush. That one blew my mind, and it still kind of does. That's not, and I don't have a business of bringing through goldfish or Siamese fighter fish or anything like that. But I guess what I want to say is this: I believe that the spark of life, the divine spark, is in every living being. And there is a consciousness associated with that. And the fish also told me like some things that she said and did in that living room that it observed, and she said that was correct. So while the fish was alive, so that's the only time I've ever had a fish. And I even feel kind of silly saying it, but it blew my mind, the accuracy of what was coming through. And she was validating it. Birds, horses, cats, dogs, fish, I think a chicken one time, and this would be more, not just that randomly somebody had a bunch of chickens, but the chicken that was the pet chicken, where there was a love connection, right? Then the animal consciousness can come through and say things. And what's so fascinating to me in the animal communications is they will often describe things that have happened since their passing in the home or the property that they lived on, right? With their person. And they will often describe how they passed to me too. So if it's a dog, I don't always get the breed of dog. I used to have a golden retriever, so that is one that I will know what the breed is, but I don't know dog breeds. So I'll either tell someone it's a little dog or it's a white dog or it's, it's got a lot of hair or it doesn't. They will say things. The animals will actually communicate accurate information about their owners, and it isn't always flattering. It can be.
It's like you're finally seeing what your dog was actually thinking.
Yes. So, yes, animals come through from over the Rainbow Bridge. Animals, I can do this, but I'm not highly trained in it like some people are. But animal conscious, a living animal down here on Earth, can also be connected to psychically through mental telepathy. And I know people that gets a lot of help on behavioral issues with their animals from going to like a pet psychic or an animal psychic who then can communicate and find out what it is the dog is afraid of, or what, things like that. Or I have a friend who does this, and she's amazing. She helped find a lost cat, and the cat kept showing her that he was in there was a building burning nearby. And so she had the owner look up fires, and then last week they found the cat in the barn next to the other barn that burned. So yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes, it can happen, and some people are highly trained in it. I am not, but I do a lot of my mediumship readings, animals come through. And some people schedule just to hear from their animals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of us view animals as just another family member. And if all energy and consciousness is one, then I would understand that that information can be tapped into just like a deceased person. So yes, that makes sense.
I literally had a woman one time. She had just gotten a new puppy. The puppy was probably about 8 or 10 weeks old. So she wanted me to connect and just see what the puppy had to say. I don't remember what all the puppy said, but I did. I don't think the puppy told me this. I picked up from the puppy's energy field that she had a UTI. And the woman says, "Oh, no, everything's fine." Well, she texted me 3 days later, and she said the puppy started to act up about a day after the reading. She took her to the vet. Nobody could figure out what it was. And so the woman said, "Well, let's do a thing for bladder infection." Sure enough, the puppy had a UTI, and they were able to give the antibiotics and everything, and she was fine. But yeah, that was like 3 days before she needed to go to the vet that information came through. So, yeah.
Well, the last reading that we had together, at the very end, you were like, have you like had any sweat? Do you have like a swelling going on, or like, are you like have some sort of health thing that like you're experiencing swelling? And I immediately was like thinking of my throat, of being like, oh, am I about to get sick? And I was like, no, I don't know. And then 2 days later, I woke up. Cassie remembers this. I woke up, my whole eye, and underneath my eye, it looked like somebody punched me in the face. I'm like, what the hell? And I hadn't had an injury or anything. It's just like all swollen. I'm like, Alissa said this was going to happen. I should have freaking knew it.
That's crazy.
It went away quickly and stuff, but it's just funny. Okay. I know we could talk forever, but there are a couple other things about readings in particular. We've talked a lot about how people can connect on their own or foster their own relationship and grow that. But if somebody's seeking out a reading either with you or another medium or psychic medium, however we establish that goes, how do they best prepare entering one for somebody who's pretend this person has never had any experience with this type of interaction and they don't really know what to expect, maybe a bit skeptical? How does somebody best prepare for this?
Okay, perfect. First of all, I love a good skeptic, not a cynic, but a skeptic, because they're going to make me work a little harder. They're not going to just say yes to everything, right? So, okay, just have an open heart and an open mind. You don't actually have to believe it. You don't have to even believe it to schedule a reading. Can you just maintain an open energy field, an open heart, and an open mind? Come into your reading with that. I would say there are so many good mediums. There are so many not good mediums also, and psychics out there. So I would always say, check in with yourself and see if you're on a website or on a social media page of someone who does this. What energy are you getting off of this, right? And so be discerning that way, and then don't give them any information. If you have an open heart and an open mind, a good reader will be able to pick up what they need to in the reading. The only thing that I would say always do is let them know when they're on track, and say no when they're not. And I always say to people, just tell me yes, no, or I don't know. And then at the end of the reading, you can fill me in a little bit if you want to. But during the course of it, if I'm correct, say yes. If I'm not, so Cassie, when I was trying to read you and I said tulip, you don't know. Maybe you don't know. I've got to get something more specific than that for you to be able to say yes to. So that's what I would say to people. Be in a quiet space, have an open heart and open mind. Drop any expectation of what may or may not come through. If you're holding an expectation of, well, I have to hear my mother's name, or it's not a good reading. Maybe your mom doesn't want to give her name. Maybe the medium is no good with names. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Some mediums get names, some don't. I had a teacher, world famous medium, now passed, teacher of mine. She didn't work with names. She wasn't good at receiving them. Like, we all as mediums have different strengths. Okay. If the person coming is in their mind, I must hear my mother's name or it's not a good reading, and the medium can't get names, the medium could bring forward 10 other absolute correct details about mom, and the person might not be able to hear it. So I say, let go of an expectation, right? Let your loved ones know in your mind beforehand that you're going to be having a reading, and invite them to come into it, because they can pick up, right? They perceive your thoughts. And then when you're in the reading, don't give out a bunch of information. Don't have a closed energy field, but just, you can tell the medium at the end, just say yes if it's correct, right? And no, I don't understand.
So don't elaborate too much in the moment.
Nope. Let the medium do their job. And for a psychic reading, the same kind of thing. I'm going to be asking questions to be sure that I'm not going to be asking questions to get information from you. A good psychic or medium isn't going to do that. And we should be able to read you over the phone or in person or over Zoom just as effectively, right? Over the phone, no body language, like all of that. But I will ask questions just to be sure that I am accurately connected to you psychically before I tell you anything about your future. So, for example, when I start reading someone an intuitive or psychic reading, this is different than the mediumship, right? I would start by maybe trying to see about the person's health, maybe if they're a mother or not a mother, maybe if they've had a recent trip. And this would be an example of starting out an intuitive reading. I might say, okay, just let me tap into your energy field. I feel three young men around you, and I feel that you would be the mother of three boys. And I also feel that one of them has recently had an appendicitis or an appendectomy or something maybe it was gallbladder, but I'm really feeling appendicitis. And I would also know that you yourself deal with eczema on your arms. Would you understand that? That might be I would maybe, you know what I'm trying to say? And then she might say to me.
Yeah, it's so specific.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So it might take me 5 minutes working with the energy to get that specific. Sometimes it just takes a few minutes to warm up, but you should be getting specificity that you can validate in a reading. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, you kind of answered a couple of the other things about like how to parse out how to find a reputable person to see. I mean, based on my own experience, when I was in the throes of like, this is, a lot of people are like, I need to go to therapy because I just had a traumatic life event or the passing of somebody. I need help with this. I'm not knocking therapy because I have gone down that route. But for me, I was like, I just really want to connect in this way. It's going to help me feel better. So I kind of went on this, like, I'm going to just try and a bunch of psychics and mediums and see what happens. And I had a couple that I was like, they just, not that they were bad. It's just, I didn't feel that connection really. But I didn't really have a rhyme or reason of like, oh, this is a good person to go to or not. So I think your advice of just being like, what is your feeling? What is the vibe you're getting from this? Because you'll know. And so it's not always super obvious, you have to kind of have your own experience of reaction to that. So that makes sense to me. And how to get the most out of a reading, you also kind of answered, with just keeping your mind and your heart open and not going in with super specific expectations that would negate the rest of a really amazing experience, because I think we can get really hung up on that of like, well, if I don't hear this one particular detail, or like you almost set it up as like a test,
Right.
Not only for the medium, but for your loved one. Like, I need to hear that I made pasta bolognese last night, or this is all bullshit. Like, that's like, but then you could be telling me all these other amazing things that I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I need to hear about this pasta, or it's not real.
Can I
So
say
making
something into
sure.
this? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
So that's literally, what if what if the medium has no experience in the kitchen, no interest in cooking? Like, they're not going to get that information, right? They may be focused on, I don't know, they do something else. They don't care. They hate pasta, right? They're not from an Italian family. They
Yeah.
are literally not going to see that information. So you have to realize, psychics, mediums, we are not all knowing, right? We just get, we, there's things I can't see in a reading. And I'm honest with somebody about that. You know what I'm saying? They'll say, well, did my mom say blah, blah, blah? I'm like, well, if she did, I would have said it. If she, you know
Right.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so I'm not going to make something up. I don't know. I didn't hear it. And it might be something that I have no interest in. And so I'm not going to necessarily get that information. I also want to say that every once in a while, even an excellent medium or psychic cannot read. It happens to me about every 40 to 50 readings. I might have 3 readings that day, and the third one, I just am not getting anything that's accurate. That can happen.
Mm-hmm.
In any really reputable psychics or medium will be honest about that. So here's what I do in that case. I'll work on it for 10 minutes. If I'm not getting accuracy in the first 10 minutes, I end it, and I either send you a refund and a list of reputable people that I trust, that I've been to, right? Or that are
Mm-hmm.
practicing psychics and mediums, or I offer you a rain check. The energy just has to align. And I don't read people when I'm having a headache, or, you know what I'm saying? Things like this. It really does matter. Or if I'm just gotten some bad news myself, right?
Right.
I remember my husband got a cancer diagnosis, and I tried to go do a reading that afternoon. I couldn't make the connection. My energy was too upset, right? Traumatized.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So I will, usually people with me, if this happens to somebody with me, I offer a rain check or a refund. Most people choose a rain check if they were vibing with me, and mostly that's what people do. And then the next reading is just perfect. So I don't have a good explanation. I know it's not their fault that I couldn't connect. I don't think it's the spirit's fault. I think it's something to do with my energy field, and that's just, I hate it when it happens, but it happens. And maybe I wasn't meant to be their intuitive. Maybe they were meant to go to somebody else, or maybe
Yeah.
the timing wasn't perfect. So that can happen.
Well, I think that's a good reminder, because I think a lot of times, especially people who lean more on the skeptical side of things, are like, oh, well, it didn't work, so it's not real. And you have to remind, yourself that, okay, this person you're talking to is a human being, and things happen. And, like, we're all kind of dealing with our own energetic situations, and sometimes we're just off and things aren't clicking or vibing. I think everyone can relate to that, whether you're a medium or not. Like, sometimes you're just off and nothing
Yes,
works out, because you need to recharge, reset, whatever it may be. Same goes with your
absolutely.
profession. And
Yep.
the other part of that is going back to how you were like, well, maybe this person doesn't know anything about the kitchen or cooking, and they're not going to receive that information. It kind of goes back to something that somebody else told me years ago, that when I was also I was doing some group classes about this, and she was like, we pull from our experiences. And she was talking about it as far as like people who are deep in grief and don't want to go out or do anything, or kind of shut down and you kind of seclude yourself and you don't want to go, you're not super stoked on life and you don't really have the interest in going out and having new experiences because you're depressed or you're whatever it may be. And she's like, well, there's a time and place for that, especially when it comes to somebody who's trying to develop their skills either professionally or just for your own. You are only going to receive information based on your experiences. So go out and live your life, have different interactions with people and experiences, and take classes and take the trip and have all these different things, because then your frame of reference broadens and you
Yes.
can receive information in a bunch of different ways. But if you just kind of stay stagnant or just in one little zone or lane, you're limiting yourself in more ways than one.
Actually, that's part of training for intuitives and psychics and mediums, is to broaden the life experience. So for me, I watched all of The Sopranos. I had no reference. I didn't know a lot of Italian people. I don't know what the deal was. And I wasn't into
Yeah.
And that opened up my whole mind, like literally of,
Mm-hmm.
Not that I want to be bringing through gangsters or anything, but just like a way of living that just other people know about, or, you know what I'm trying to say? And
Right.
so I actually will go out and watch movies or shows sometimes that aren't what I'm necessarily pulled to, just to broaden my own experience, my own knowledge of things. And then in a reading, literally, if they show me Tony Soprano, I know I need to talk about, and I've had readings of people who were involved in the mafia, right? Like, so there's
Okay.
there's yes, yes.
Yep.
But and I had a reading recently with a woman whose three of her father was coming through. Three of his brothers died in Auschwitz. So my knowledge of World War II and the reading and I've done and everything like that is used in that kind of, right? Because then I could receive information that way. I did want to, can I share something else? I know it's not a question, but I wanted to just explain something.
No, of course.
Okay. So I did a reading a couple days ago, and it was really phenomenal. Not all readings are like, some of them are just like phenomenal. I wanted to just share so that people listening, if this is of interest, the kinds of details that can come out in a reading. So it was a woman and her niece were here. So she was probably about my age, the woman, her niece was probably in her 20s, early 30s, something like that. First thing I got was, I saw in my mind's eye was a ladybug. So I just said, hey, I'm seeing a ladybug. I don't know if that connects either one of you to someone who's passed or some reason. They said no. And then instead of seeing ladybug, I actually heard ladybird, as in Lady Bird Johnson, right? So I said, okay, wait a minute. I think I'm wrong about the ladybug. I'm hearing like the name Ladybird. And then one woman goes, oh, okay, I think I might be able to understand this. So I said, well, I have a woman and she loves plants, and I'm hearing Ladybird, and I know that she's a mother and grandmother. And she says, oh my God, this has got to be my grandma. She had a whole like room built on for her plants at her house, right? And they didn't call her Ladybird, but they called her Bird Lady.
Oh, okay. It's like, all right, close enough. You get what I'm saying.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how this all quite came in like this, but okay. Then we kept talking, and more things came out, that the way that she died, and then that her husband had died of a heart attack, and all this stuff. And it's all making sense to her. And so then I said, well, now she's telling me that you guys are expecting a baby. There's a pregnancy in the family, and she's quite excited. This would be a great grandchild for her. And the lady says to me, no, there's nobody pregnant. I said, okay, well, I don't know. Maybe somebody's going to be. Keep your mouth shut and see what happens. Well, she left the reading, and she texted me later, and she goes, oh my God, after the reading, my niece called me to announce the news that she's pregnant.
There it is.
So
yeah,
there was the pregnancy. But this answers a question a lot of people have, which is, well, how do you know what you're connecting to? I mean, what if you're just pulling information out of the person's mind in front of you, right? So we do get information that might be in someone's mind, like, her beloved mother that loved her plants and everything. But what about something that you get that is not known by the person in front of you, right?
Right.
That's why I love it in a reading when they actually give me something and someone says no, and then they go home and talk to somebody else, or they wait a couple days and it actually, they find out that it was true. I love that because I couldn't have been pulling that out of her mind, right? That's just a question I get, which is, well, maybe all the things you're telling me are just the things I'm thinking about. Nobody knew this girl was pregnant yet.
Right. Well, yeah, but you did. Yeah, I had a couple, like when I was, this was randomly, this was like last winter. I remember I was sitting at home, I live by myself, and all of a sudden, like you said earlier, simultaneously this happened, like all at once,
Okay.
even though it seems like several things. I thought of my good friend, and I thought of his grandfather, who I've never met. I have never met. I thought of his grandfather. I saw him walk up to a grave, put a bouquet of roses and also a birthday cake. And then all of a sudden I felt a twinge in my left leg. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? I was watching like reality TV. Like I wasn't even in a headspace of like, I'm trying to connect. And so I'm like, it was just so vivid and so startling that I was like, I need to check if this is like real or what this even means. Lo and behold, he was having dinner with his grandmother, who has paralysis of her left leg. And she was there celebrating her birthday. And that happened to also be the anniversary of her husband's passing. I'm like, okay. So, and he's like, so what else did you get? I'm like, I don't know. That was it. I don't know. There's no message. There's no follow up. I don't know what any of that means. I just had to tell you that, like, I felt all of that coming in. And I don't know if that's just like they knew that I was aware or open and I would communicate that to him and he would pass that message along type of thing. Have you had that happen where it's like, I need to say this to you type of thing, even if you're not in a reading for somebody?
Yes. Yes. Although I keep my boundaries so that spirit doesn't give me those kind of message, unless it's like life or death. Like if it's otherwise, get your person to a reading is what I
Right,
say.
right.
But I want to just follow up. So if you were trained, what you would have done with all that information before you called him is say, who's speaking to me? Who is this? Who's speaking to me?
Okay.
And thank you for the evidence. Now, what's your message? So
Okay.
then when you called him, you could have said, here's the evidence: roses, gravesite, pain in my leg, cake. And then he would have gone, oh my God, here's what's happening right now. I'm with my grandmother and her leg, and it's the anniversary of the blah, blah, blah. And then you would have said, okay, that all makes sense. And here's who told me I heard grandfather. So I'm assuming this is your grandfather. And here's the message. He knows what you're he loves you. He knows whatever it would have been, whatever the message would have been. So what you just received was what we would call the evidence part of a reading. Right.
Okay. One piece of the puzzle.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's what training will do for you, is teach you how to then go to the next step and the next step and the next step, so that you have a cohesive story and a message for the person.
Okay.
Why did it come for you? That feels pretty random. At the time, were you developing your skills when you got that information?
No, this was actually, and I know we're kind of getting into like personal conversations that people don't really know, but for background, the last conversation we had together was I booked a session, and I think we ended up just talking about, that like, I felt like I was so open and connected and all this stuff was happening, and now it feels like I have nothing type of thing. It was in that period of time where it's like the faucet had kind of shut off. So it took me by surprise, because it was definitely very much in that period of time where I felt like there was nothing happening to me. So yeah, it was very strange.
So that
And
probably
it hasn't
happened to show
again.
you that you still have it, should you decide to keep developing or get back in touch with it, that it's not gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, for people who are just kind of directing people who are interested in either mentorship or guidance or reading, what kind of readings do you, I know we really have just this whole time been talking about mediumship, and I know there are other sorts of offerings that you have. Like, do you do any sort of tarot readings or intuitive readings aside from, I don't know, like if you do anything that's
Yeah.
different than just psychic medium, or do you do any energy work?
So I do. I do not use a tarot or cards particularly. I'll use cards every once in a while for myself. But here are the readings that I do offer: spiritual mediumship, that would be connecting with your loved ones in spirit; spiritual guidance, that would be your more intuitive or quote psychic reading. I don't foretell the future. I will in a spiritual guidance reading that would be coming in. If you really have questions, we will look at the future, but it's more, I'll be using my intuition. I'll be focused on you, and we will be looking for things that might be blocking you, the energy around choices you might be making in the future, and just like what's going on maybe with your health or with your finances or with your relationships or with your job. Like, people book those kinds of readings when they have kind of life questions for moving forward. I also do spiritual mentoring and coaching for people that want to open up and increase their own abilities, whether for professional use or for personal use. People who want to be able to get that guidance from their higher self, strengthen their voice of intuition for making life decisions, connecting with their own loved ones. How some of the questions you asked, how can I be open? How do I know what's a sign, what's not a sign? So I do some programs like that for people. I do some past life regression work. That would be a hypnotic type experience. I do some energy clearing work. So that's all on my website. You can see that actually the past life regressions are not. It's just, you'd have to email me separately about that.
See, I didn't know about that, and I'm
I don't do them for
interested in
just
that.
anybody.
So
They can be pretty
okay.
heavy. Yeah. I do teach short workshops. Like, I have one coming up in March for learning about your spirit guides, actually, which was one of your questions.
Okay.
How do I know who my guides are? How can I connect with them? How do I receive guidance? That kind of thing. I don't do tarot readings. I don't do card readings. Tarot and cards I go to other readers for those kinds of readings. They're a tool.
Okay.
But mostly my information comes through the ways I was describing, through the clairs. So I don't really use a tool that way, but they can be great for people who want that kind of reading. I don't have anything against it. So yeah, that's pretty much those are the types of readings and the kinds of classes and mentorships that I do. So
Amazing. And we're going to link your website and your socials on the episode description here. So for anyone who's interested, is the best way your site through your form on your
yeah,
website?
My website is Alissa with an I, AlissaSmithIntuitive.com. That's a fine way you can schedule right there. You can reach out to me also through Facebook, Alissa Smith Intuitive, and also on Instagram, Alissa Smith Intuitive. Any of the above, I'll get it. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for all your time and your insight. And I know we were kind of scattered and all over the place, but people had a lot of questions and I have a lot of questions. So it kind of just got a little convoluted. I guess, last thing that I've been wanting to ask you about is dreams. I am very interested in visitation dreams. And I think that it was the way I primarily connected with my loved ones for a really long time. And I would like to know, as far as your experience, I feel like some people get really bummed if they don't connect with their loved one in that way. But can you kind of shed some light on maybe what differentiates a visitation dream from just dreaming of somebody who passed away?
Yeah, great question. So, not all dreams of your loved one are visitation dreams, right? Our subconscious is working stuff out for us in our sleep time and our dream time all the time. A visitation dream, you will know it's a visitation dream because you will feel it in your being, in your heart, in your very beingness. For example, it may be that you smell the person, right? Or I don't know how to say it. Anyone who's had a visitation dream, you know it's a visitation dream. And then the ones
Mm-hmm.
where you actually don't know it, they aren't. So that's the best I can say
Right.
about that. You can't force a visitation dream. I have had 5 significant losses in the last 4 years. Only 2 of those people have come to me in visitation dreams. Now, I've dreamed about all of them, but the visitation dreams are unmistakable. And I think, would you agree with that from your experience of knowing that your person was actually with you?
Oh, 100%. And I've
Yeah.
only had actually, so my dad has been gone since I was 19 years old. I think about him all the time. He was like one of my closest friends, I guess, even though he was a parent. I had one visitation dream from him since he passed away. And I knew that it was a visitation dream. And it's just so memorable. Like if I even thinking about it right now, I feel like I'm back in it. And the pattern with visitation dreams that in my experience is even though I've dreamt about both Ian and my dad multiple times, many times since they've both passed away, the visitation dreams are so specific in the feeling, like you said, you just know. It's like an inner knowing. And in my experience, they've never said anything to me. We never conversed with words in the dreams. It was all just knowing info telepathic information or exchange of thoughts and emotions.
I love that description because that's exactly what it is. And that's how they do communicate now, is telepathically. It's just an exchange of energy. So in some people's visitation dreams, their loved ones will speak to them and tell them something or tell them a message, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. Good for you. I actually have experienced it more like you, where it's just a feeling or a telepathic knowing. But I think the best I can say is when it's a visitation dream, you will know it. They were present with you. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing, your consciousness is during our sleep time, our consciousness is just removed from the physical body. The mind is out of the way. And it literally is our mind that so much causes the inability for us to receive feeling them or knowing them, right? It's got to come in
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when our mind isn't active. And so that's why a lot of times when someone feels like they don't get any messages from their loved ones, but they do get a visitation dream, that's the best that the loved one could do for you at that time, was like come at a time
Right.
when your mind wasn't going to get in the way, right? And then they will give
Right.
you
Yeah.
that.
It's like, where's my opening
Yep,
here?
yep.
Like, how can I get to them?
Absolutely. So I lost my husband in 2022, and I've had 3 visitation dreams. Nothing like in the last 2 years. None. 3 sort of towards the beginning. And so you can't, they aren't
Mm-hmm.
on demand. They aren't, right? They're in whatever way that they can come, they do in a dream. And a lot of times people are get fixated on, oh, I want to, because it's such a wonderful feeling. It's that reconnection, right? And for a minute, you know that there is life. Life continues, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I will just say this: don't try to force it. And it seems to me like they come when you're least expecting it, like when your mind is not hyper focused on it. But you will know. You will know. And then there's also dreams that are precognitive. This is not where you're getting a visitation from a loved one, but literally where you dream of something happening and then it happens. So that's
And then
just
it
another
happens.
way that we access psychic information in a dream. Yep. Yep.
I had a, so this, I'm so curious your thoughts of this because it's an experience that kind of blends the two that we were just talking about. And I remember it was so I just said my visitation dreams, no one has ever said anything verbally to me in them, with the exception of one. And it's stands unique to any type of dream I've ever had in my entire life. It was in 2020. It was about a year or so after Ian died. And I had this very vivid dream of my mom's dad, my grandfather, standing in front of a group of people. We were all in fold out chairs, and I was sitting at the very front row, and he went up to this microphone and he had a piece of paper and he looked like he was about to give a speech. And he just looked at me and just kept saying limoncello. And like he was staring into my soul, like, pay attention to what I'm saying to you. But that was the only thing he said. And I had never seen him in a dream before. He had died a decade before. And I woke up and I'm like, maybe this is a sign for, or a message for my mom, because my mom was obviously like, that's her dad. So I texted her immediately. I'm like, did you ask grandpa for a sign recently? And she said, yeah, I asked him for like a cowboy or something or whatever. I'm like, okay, this isn't it. I'm like, so limoncello, I'm thinking of as like an Italian dessert because we're Italian. I'm like, it must be a dessert. Like, did you have limoncello for dessert? Maybe. And she's like, oh, I think it's like an Italian liqueur. And no, I haven't had it recently. I'm like, okay, I give up. I don't know what this was about. It was so strange. That night, I went to a bar in Evergreen, Colorado, in a friggin' rustic mountain town, hole in the wall bar. And at the very end of the night, the woman was like, hey, so are you interested in our dessert special? It's limoncello. And I was like, oh, what did you just say to me? Like, what? It was just the strangest thing. And I don't know what it means. What, like, was that a precognition thing? Was it a visitation? What the hell does that even mean? But it was just so interesting because I was like, I knew it. I knew there was something with limoncello. It feels like all these experiences I'm telling you have no rhyme or reason. I'm like, I don't know what it means, but it happened to me. And that just seems the theme. But yeah, it was the weirdest thing.
Okay,
and I haven't
so
seen him again.
First of all,
I haven't had any more messages.
I find spirit to be very playful. And limoncello is so obscure, right? It's just weird. It's just like, right? You didn't even know what it was. And yet, within 24 hours of that dream, someone is offering you limoncello, right? So this would be the perfect, I was talking about Carl Jung and his definition of synchronicity. Like, it's so random that it's not random. You have this dream, right? What I want to say is, I feel that spirit plays with us sometimes, throws out something that would be so unlikely, and then sends it to you. So I don't think there's any deep meaning. I mean, you could go Google, spiritual significance of limoncello if you wanted to. I probably wouldn't bother. But that was just showing you, I'm going to put this in your path. And the next day, I'm still here, right? And that's what that is to me. And to me, that's playful, that's joyful, that's just fun. That's how they are a lot of times. And honestly, weird things in readings are like that. Okay. Like, just too much to be just a coincidence.
Yeah. I also kind of like that sentiment, just kind of to leave off of like, it doesn't always have to be that deep and profound and heavy or sad or like this massive life-changing message or interaction. It's like sometimes they just pop in to be like, hey, like, I'm around, this is going to happen. Or like you said, joyful, playful. And it's not always like this has to be this, I think a lot of people who are like, I need a mediumship reading or whatever, and it can bring about a lot of heavy feelings, and it's not always easy. There are some times that I really feel like I want to book a reading, and I almost have to prepare for an emotional hangover after, because I'm like, I really want this, but I know it's about to get really sad, and I need to prepare myself to kind of crash out after. And I've learned that's not always the case. A lot of times I do feel a lot better. And sometimes silly things like that come up that I'm like, oh my God, that's actually funny or light, or yeah, I don't know. I just think that's a really good place to kind of leave people with a reminder that it's not always going to be really hard. And they're just with us in different ways.
I find spirit very joyful, very playful, sometimes teasing, and we can get deep felt apologies from a spirit in a reading, right? And then we can also get them seriously teasing, bringing up the in joke that only the family knew, or sending very playful signs. And the limoncello is a perfect example of that. No rhyme or reason, right? Not everything has a deep meaning. Yeah. Sometimes it's just,
and I think we really,
up.
literally. And I think we can get really caught up with that. It's like, because you are so sad, I think it's safe to say that most people who are coming for a reading is because it's coming from a place of sorrow, of like, I miss this person. I want to hear from them. I feel lost. I need help. And it's nice when you get those moments of levity. And it's a good reminder that, they're still with us, just in a different way. And it doesn't always have to be this deep, profound thing.
Sometimes they just want you to eat the dessert.
Exactly.
Get the limoncello, honey.
Enjoy your life. Eat the dessert.
They don't get to eat anymore. Eating, the physical stuff is gone, right? In the energy world. I've literally had them tell me before, like, go have a drink for me, or, I'll be watching, but I can't have that. So you have different pleasures in the energy and consciousness realm, but you don't have touch, right? You don't have eating, drinking. Yeah. All that stuff. Yep.
Oh, well, I'll just end on this. I know I'm like, one more thing. It's been over 2 hours. I'm so sorry. But just to end on a synchronicity, because I spaced it until just now. I just told that story about the limoncello. And this was at a time that I was telling everybody, I mean, Cassie was like, oh my God, if I hear one more sign that's happened to you, I'm going to lose my mind.
That is not true.
I know. She's always been very supportive, but I swear I was always like, oh my God, and then this happened. Can you believe it? And yeah, she's just always kind of like my first go-to person. But I was also talking to Ian's aunt about a lot of this stuff because, not everyone is like on board with, Cassie's like, that's a sign. I believe it. But most people are like, meh, I don't know about that. But Ian's aunt was one of those people who I was kind of using as a soundboard. And I told her that. And 2 days later, I send her a picture, because of course I took a picture of the limoncello to like back up my story. I'm like, see, it really happened. And I sent it to her, told her. And then 2 days later, she's like, Danielle, you will never believe. She's like, I was at a restaurant with my husband, and our waiter reminded me so much of Ian in his personality, not in the way he looked, but in his personality, his mannerisms, the things he'd say, how he said it. And of course, I don't know him from anybody, like, so I didn't tell him that. But at the very end, I was like, she's like, I kind of fibbed. I was like, you look like somebody that I know. Could we take a picture together? And he was like, yeah, sure. And afterwards, he offered her a shot of limoncello.
No. No.
She's like, you've got to be kidding me. And it was so funny because, like, it just all connected. And like, I know some people will be like, yeah, limoncello exists. It's a liqueur. It's a thing. People remind other people of certain people, but just the way in which it happened, how she would have never thought about limoncello in any other way unless I told her that a day or two before. And I don't know. I just think, yeah, keeping your eyes and heart open, like you said, with readings, same applies to life, just keeping an open mind. And like, I think the universe will surprise you in really amazing ways if you do that.
I know we're about to end, but I just thought of something out of a reading that still blows my mind to this day. And I'm going to share it, and then I won't keep you guys any longer. I had over Zoom, someone scheduled on my website. I have no idea who she is, anything. We get across each other over Zoom. And this is just fun because it kind of will show people how a reading works, right? So the first thing that happens is I see a lion, an image of a lion in my mind's eye. So I don't know what it means, but I feel a presence of a younger male, probably in his early 20s, late teens, something like that. So I say, I'm seeing the image of a lion and I feel a presence of a younger male. And I see the initial D. Do you understand this? And she starts to cry. And she's got on a sweater. And she pulls up her sweater. And right here is a tattoo of a lioness and 2 lion cubs. And she says, my son, Daniel is passed away, and this lion cub is for him, and this tattoo is for me and my 2 boys. So right away, that's the kind of evidence that I'm talking about getting in a reading, right? So we go through the reading, and he shows that I don't remember how he passed. It was a traumatic, tragic kind of ending. And he was in his early 20s. He's telling me all this stuff, and she's saying yes or validating it or whatever. And then towards the end of the reading, and I just see in my mind's eye, I get an image of a dandelion, but it's gone to seed. Do you know what I'm saying? Have you seen those pictures?
Oh, so it's all puffy.
It's all puffy.
Yeah.
And it's a circle of seed, but then part of the circle's missing and some of the seeds are blowing up into the air. It's a very specific image. But I get no reference from him he's just saying, tell her what you see, tell her what you see. So I say, I'm seeing this dandelion, it's puffed, some of the seeds are in the air, and it's like this. Would you understand this? And she says, yes, I would. And we go on and finish the reading. She's crying or whatever. We finish the reading. It's lovely. She sends me an email afterwards, and she said, do you want to know what the dandelion was? There's a photograph attached to the email, and it's a drawing of the gone to seed like this with the words Dan the Lion underneath it. And this was the drawing that his best friend used to get a tattoo done after Dan died. So I didn't understand all the pieces, but for her, it was started out with the lion, ended with the lion. You know what I'm saying? With his name on it, with the image of the dandelion. And she said that afterwards, the friend, he has the tattoo, and he gave her the drawing afterwards, just to keep, because he'd drawn it himself or whatever. And it was in memory of her son. And so to me, how do you make that shit up? So I say, where does that come from? Except the consciousness of the person who knew this, and it happened after he died, and he knew it. You know what I'm saying? So he got into my mind these different images, and the letter D, and the age that he died, and all of this kind of stuff to prove to his mom that he still exists, and that he's aware of how they're grieving for him and what they're doing to honor him. And anyway, that not every reading gets that many elements going all at once, but that's literally, in a good reading, you should be getting some of that, at least, if not 10 or 20 pieces like that. So
amazing. Well, thank you again for all your time. And I know we already talked about, where people could find you, but again, your website and your socials are going to be in our episode description. And do you have any other things you want to talk about, or that's it? It's been over 2 hours.
I had a blast.
People have
Thank you
their
so
fix.
much.
But of course, yeah. Thank you for your time. And hopefully you'll get a big influx of people who want to know more and hear from their loved ones. And we were just really grateful that you decided to come on and chat with us about, all of this spiritual stuff that people have been really dying to know and just want a different perspective on, because obviously Cassie and I have our thoughts and feelings on things, but just hearing another perspective is always lovely.
Yeah. And, I think for a lot of people who do decide to go to a reading, or they're interested, they see it from kind of an outside perspective. And it's pretty rare, I think, to get the inside perspective of the person who's actually giving the readings and who has this ability to be in touch this way. So to hear your perspective and how you receive this, I think is really helpful. So thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. In the meantime, enjoy the view.
But watch your back.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for joining us again this week. If you love National Park After Dark and want to hear exclusive bonus stories, join us on Patreon or Apple subscriptions. Patreon subscribers have access to our National Park After Dark book club, live streams, Discord, and much more. If you prefer to watch our episodes, video episodes are now available on YouTube. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And to follow along with all our adventures, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at National Park After Dark.